Lack of purpose is the number one cause of all your problems. There is no one single vice that can't be attributed to the lack of purpose. LGBTQ, terrorism. In fact, those are fantastic examples of the concept I'm about to share. Take LGBTQ as a case study. If you walk up to the average LGBTQ individual, ask some in-depth questions about the movement, he, she, they, by will end up rage quitting because they can't defend the philosophy. They don't understand the philosophy. They gravitate towards the community and the movement itself. So the movement or the community has feel the need for purpose. The movement has become the purpose. Mind you, 80 to 90% of individuals are purposeless, and it's not imbued in the human DNA to operate in a state of purposelessness, especially indefinitely. Let me give you an example. Imagine you were sitting in your office and there was this guy putting on a white shirt, moving from point A to point B, from point A to point B. In the first 1, 2, 3 hours, you might not notice. Over time, if you're nice and kind enough, you will go up to him. Excuse me, sir, are you lost? The point I'm trying to highlight from that story is a purposeless individual is an anomaly. A purposeless individual is not a sight that is common. And whenever you see something like that, you feel the urge to correct it. Purposelessness is one of the chief causes of depression. As I initially stated, if you extrapolate that concept to your life, getting up early in the morning, no sense of desire, no sense of drive, it's only a matter of time before depression sets in. Humans would rather derive a sense of purpose from a cause, whether good or bad. I was speaking to a newly converted LGBTQ individual. Why did you do this to yourself, Dan? I used to know you. You were a loving person. Ah, you used to know me. When was the last time you had a conversation with me? Exactly. So why are you having a conversation with me now? Exactly. I used to be depressed. I used to be dejected. I used to be invisible. No single person recognized me until I transitioned. All of a sudden, I'm invited to birthday parties. I'm invited to podcasts. In fact, you, the sun god Ra, is in a conversation with me. Why? Because of this new found faith. And it's going to be very stupid to try and take it away from someone who has experienced extreme level of obscurity. That's why even though you try and convince an LGBTQ convert otherwise, he truly understands, or he might not even understand, the philosophy is not what makes him stay, but the feeling, the sense of purpose, the sense of community, the sense of cohesiveness with a group of individuals makes it worth why. Go to terrorism for the same reasons I've just stated. Individuals love the idea, getting up to something. Those moments of insurgency, the dopamine, the adrenaline, and in moments of bold moves, it is rewarded. Say negotiation with the president or going to pick up a ransom. All of that builds a hierarchy and the expectation that if you prove yourself over time, you will be promoted. The idea that there's somewhere you are headed, although bad, but there's something that if you do, it will produce X results. The reality is most people are at a loss as touching life and destiny Majority of people have zero idea of what the outcome of their actions are going to lead. As a consequence, they're addicted to all kinds of hedonism, video games, pornography. They're just getting by, wasting time. Before I give you those keys that will transform your life, the keys that are the deciding factor from point A to point B, the keys that gives you an intimate grasp of what purpose is. Let's define purpose. I define purpose as your God-given assignment, why we were put on this earth, the achievement, the impact only you can bring. That is your purpose. And if you see any man walking in purpose and vision, he doesn't need external motivation. The gradual bursts of excitement, win or lose, is compensation enough than any external reward. Purpose. By that definition, it is evident that those vices feel the need. The terrorism, LGBTQ, stealing, this idea, if you rob enough people over time, it will give you access to a certain kind of lifestyle. Is alluring. How to find your purpose. And I hate using that word, find. Because once you say find, the brain naturally goes into search mode, seeking for something external. Find your purpose. Unfortunately, you do not find your purpose. You identify your purpose. Because your purpose is hidden in plain sight. Each of us have been confronted with this experience. Maybe back in the day, while you were in high school, looking for your pen while it was in your hand. Have you found my pen? Have you found my pen? And every single person you confront burst into laughter. You can't tell why, but they're just laughing. It's the same thing with purpose. If you say find, you look external. But if you say identify, it's internal. Purpose. I can't find my purpose while cooking the perfect meal. I can't find my purpose while being the best at math and winning awards upon awards upon awards. I can't find my purpose while cutting hair perfectly. The problem with all of these examples aforementioned is it has become habitual, such that you truly do not believe profiting can come out of this venture, especially financially, because it's something you do for fun, it's something you take for granted. And unfortunately, familiarity breeds contempt. As important as our limbs are, when was the last time you got up in the morning and gave thanks for having limbs? You spent extensive hours asking for money and luxurious things. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's really no problem. But it goes to show you that the important things in our life we take for granted. Unfortunately, if you lose your limbs suddenly, heaven forbid, that's all you can think about. You don't realize the important role they play as touching your life and destiny in your daily activities. You can do the dishes, you can have your baths without pain, you can brush your feet. But once you lose a limb, you begin to see all the deficiency associated with that situation. It's the same thing with your purpose. It's familiar. You can't cook a good meal. You can't cut hair. Yeah, I'm just a barber, and people downplay the status in order to appear humble. Unfortunately, my friend, fortunately, and I'm telling you this for experience, never you humiliate yourself in order to appear humble. Because the mind cannot tell between a joke and reality. If you think a thought and feel the emotion, you can think, What if my father dies and you're tearing up physically? The mind is that objective. It has zero idea. It can't distinguish between a reality and a thought. It's that objective. So if you begin to humiliate yourself, if you begin to downplay your skill, it's only a matter of time before you dilute its effect. If you look at most things, like in the design industry or say fashion brands, still under the design industry, you can categorize them as overpriced. Unfortunately, that's someone who understood his or her value, decided to build a brand out of that thought, and is making millions of dollars. The same thing with you. Because of the wrong idea you have about your product or brand, you so underprice it such that the only kind of individuals that gravitate towards the activity, product, good, or service are average people. Unfortunately, average people do not have the reward you want. Yes, you can take advantage through skill, which I've talked about in a separate video, but the kind of people who would reward you, because serving average people requires you to do it in mass before you take advantage of the cost savings and economics of scale. But there are two different things. Once you sell a piece of clothing at $50 to an average individual and at $5,000 to a king, it gives you more time to focus on that piece. It reduces the stress and fatigue, and ultimately you make more money. In this case, one client is equivalent to 100 clients. Would you rather serve one or serve 100 at the same price? Exactly. So identify your purpose. Your purpose would always be linked to talent. The reason most people deliberately do not want to identify their purpose is because it's linked to talent. And talent requires hard work. Majority don't want to put that effort. Majority doesn't want to do what it takes. Majority don't want to do what it takes in order to realize success. You notice I just checked whether the mic was on. If you've heard my story, I used to record off a fucked up phone. The temperature was 90 degrees. So there are times where the recording would stop as a consequence of either high temperature or low storage. So it's kind of like a reflex, like a pattern. I will always check if the mic is on or look at the mirror behind, ensuring the video is still recording. I'm trying to stop. I'm a changed man. Trying to stop. It's more like a reflex. But if until you're ready to put in the work to realize success, it's never going to come. Identify your talent, work as hard as possible in order to achieve, and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, it's a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.